Hi felters and welcome. In this video we're going to talk about how to store your wool. So you've been needle felting for a while, you've bought some wool and you're starting to wonder how to store it. So first off, you've got to consider, do you want to do it through colours, or do you want to do it through breed or wool type? Or are you not too bothered and you can have it all mixed up together? That's how I do it. And then next off, you've got to consider location. You've got to keep it away from cats and dogs and pets. They absolutely love wool, and if they can get to it, they will have fun with it. So away from pets, away from direct sunlight because it will bleach your wool. It's okay to have light accessing your wool, and we'll talk about that a little bit more. Away from anywhere damp. You absolutely don't want dampness near your wool. And then away or not in an area where the temperature is going to fluctuate up and down, or quite high fluctuations in temperature, because again that will lead to dampness. So how are you going to store it, and then location, and then we can look at things that you can store it in. So first up, you could store it in the bag it arrives in. It's absolutely fine. I like to leave the end open. A lot of my wool is near the light, not in the direct sunlight as I just said. But moths don't like light, so I keep it open. It allows it to breathe. Sometimes I've got so much wool in here, I put stuff on the window ledge, and if it's sealed, the moisture develops within about an hour. You don't want moisture, because if moisture develops, it will the wool will start to felt on itself, and then it's ruined. So I like to leave it open so it can breathe. You can use Ziploc bags, and you could write on the Ziploc bags what the wool is, especially if it didn't arrive with labels, but World of Wool are really great. Everything's got labels. Sometimes I order from Crafty Fibres, and theirs comes in paper, and that's a really nice way because it's completely breathable. So if you're leaving it in the light, that's absolutely fine. But if you're going to store it somewhere dark, then you're going to need to seal it and put some paper or some tissue paper or something inside it to absorb the moisture if you're worried about moisture. Moths do like dark, so you definitely want to seal it to make sure that nothing can get in there. Some people also vacuum seal their wool if you're not going to access it for a long time. It definitely must be dry, and I would keep it in a dark place with a constant temperature if you're going to do that. I've never had a need to do that, but I have had wool that I've ordered arrive vacuum sealed, which was really great because it's obviously cheaper to post, and it opened up and it fluffed up just fine, and it was in really good condition. So vacuum seal is another way, especially if it was a long-term storage solution. Make sure there's definitely no bugs or insects in there. We'll talk through that in a minute. Vacuum seal it into a box. I would probably still put a little bit of tissue paper or a kitchen roll or something in there, just in case there was any moisture you didn't know about. So at the moment I'm keeping quite a bit of wool in my new drawer unit that I've got here at the side. It's great, everything is in its bag, so it's labelled. I can open up the whole drawer and I can see lots of my wool in one go, which is why I really like it. But a way in which you could organise it within a drawer is with little sock organisers. So you could just pop it in the little holes, and that would be really, really cool actually. And you could take it out of the bags if you want to. It is dark, so you are going to have to just keep an eye on it. So that is typically where moths like to be. When you put sort of jumpers in the back of drawers, in the back of cupboards and never see them, that's when the moths come in, and we'll talk about insects in a minute. But I'm loving this drawer unit. It's really handy and really easy to reach and really easy to get to the colours I want. So next up, looking at sort of shoe boxes or stacking boxes. So I've got these really good plastic ones that were recommended to me by Chloe, one of my subscribers. They are economical, they are see-through, so you can see what wool you've got. You can open up the front easily. My dogs can't get into them. The wool can breathe. So I really, really like them, and they're sturdy and strong. Once you set the front and back frame on, they're really, really strong. I've also got these cardboard ones up here. They're very good, really economical. Again, you can see the colour of the wool from the front. You could even pop the little slither through the little hole, but I've popped all my stationery in there at the moment. So any other stacking boxes that have got an opening on the front so you can see what wool you've got, the air can get in there and the light can get in there. I wouldn't put them in a dark sort of garage in a stacking box that's open because of the moisture and the moths issue. But yeah, any sort of stacking boxes depending on your budget. Next up, you can probably see it from here, is the back of the door shoe holder. And I got that quite early on. Really fantastic, hides away behind a door. You can see all of your wool straight away. I just pop them in the bags in there, but I leave the top of the bag open. The light is getting to it. My husband doesn't know how much wool I have because it's behind the door, so I think it's really good. And again, price-wise, that is absolutely fantastic. You could have it on the front of the door. You could hang it off some shelves so you can see. But yeah, a really good space saver, especially if you don't want your craft taking over a room. Hide it behind a door. So again, really, really good. Anything I mentioned that I have here will be listed in my Amazon shop below. So if you're interested, do go and have a look. So next up is glass jars, and probably the most expensive, but they do look beautiful. I have about 4 or 5 glass jars just on my table here, and I keep my essential colours in there, and they were just free ones that I got over the years. But if you were to buy a whole set, quite expensive. You also have to bear in mind they're going to be quite heavy. Do you put the lid on or not? Personally, if it's in a light room like this, I would leave the lid off so I could just get in with my hand, and then you won't have any moisture building up. If you were going to put them away in a dark space, then you're going to have lid on and put some sort of absorbent paper. You can also get those the silica gel things that come. You could pop those in, but I don't really like to go there with that, so just a little kitchen towel or something like that. But yeah, glass jars look stunning, but they do have their drawbacks, expense and weight. So let's just talk about insects and moths in particular that could get in and damage your wool. Touch wood, I've never had an issue with it here. I think we're quite fortunate with the climate. I think it does depend on the temperature of your climate and the dampness. I have spoken to people that have constant problems with it. So moths like darkness. So that's one thing straight away. If you've got a small amount of wool, try and keep it where there is some light. If you have to store it somewhere dark, then I would seal it and put some paper in it, which is what I mentioned before. Always check, if you order new wool in, check for any moth eggs. Now, I've looked them up online because I've never seen them myself. I used to think they were dark, but I think moth eggs can also be white, little white dots, cream dots, beige dots, brown dots. So any little dots, like lots of them, not just vegetable matter, but any little dots in your wool, definitely put that wool aside. I would say if you're ordering from a supplier you've not ordered from before, put the wool aside for 4 weeks somewhere safe so it doesn't contaminate the rest of your wool, and you would see probably by then that the moth eggs would hatch. Great things to sort of try and deter moths are lavender and cedarwood. I have a lavender spray that I spray every now and again around my room. Some people put little sachets of lavender inside their felts, and I have these cedarwood balls that I just sort of pop on the shelf. You could pop them in the drawers, or you could just pop them in if you had a sealed container. I'm sure that would be quite nice to just put a little cedar ball in there. So those things are supposed to be really good. The lavender obviously smells great anyway. So if you see anything that looks like eggs in wool that you've got, pop it in the freezer in a bag, leave it in there for at least a week, bring it out for a couple of days, 2 to 4 days, and then put it back in the freezer. That change in temperature would activate the eggs in order for them to hatch. It would tell them that it's time to hatch. And as they start to hatch, you put them back in and kill them. I personally would probably throw that wool away. I probably wouldn't even go through that process. If you got it from a supplier, I would complain to them, take photos. Do not put it anywhere near the rest of your wool because they would contaminate the rest of your wool. So freezer is the first way to deal with it. There are chemicals that you can buy which would also help you deal with it too. If you open one of your wools and it smells a bit old, and it's not the sheepy smell, pop it outside in the direct sunlight for a couple of days, sort of pull it apart, air it all out. If that doesn't work, wash it and see if that gets it any better. I have heard people putting a bit of bicarbonate of soda in a box, a bit of charcoal in a box to try and draw out the smell. But if you can't get rid of it after washing it, I don't think it's going to go. So it depends if it's for personal use. If you were selling an item, you really don't want it to have a sort of musty smell. Does wool have a shelf life? This is another question that I've heard recently when we went on a workshop. I've had wool that's 6 or 7 years old and it's not been a problem. It's absolutely, perfect condition, but I've not touched it or done anything to it, and they've just been stored in bags like this. But wool can felt itself, so especially if it got a bit of moisture in there, because once you add water, that's sort of the start of the felting process. So wool can felt together over time. I should imagine it would take a long time. So you might get to your wool, pull it out, and there would be sort of little clumps, so you can just pull it apart. So technically, yes, there is a shelf life. Fleeces, especially if I've got a white or a sort of beige fleece, they can go quite yellow after the first year. So if you buy a natural fleece that's raw, that's not washed, you probably need to use it sooner rather than later. I have stored fleeces out there for about 2 years. But if it's gone yellow, then something I'm going to look at doing is dyeing it. So I'm still going to use it. I'm going to sort of dye it into sort of a nice brown, a nice beige, just something to get away from that yellow colour. So I hope I've given you some good ideas and things to think about for storing your wool. If you have any ways to store your wool or ways to deal with insects or moths, do let me know. Put it down in the comments below. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you again soon. Take care.